Good morning, my dear students. So again, I'm here to help you out during this lockdown period, and I'm here with my Cambridge International School, the SUA, as my school has taken initiative for e-learning. So I'm here to help out my students for learning economics while sitting at the comfort of their home. So I'll not let you suffer in your studies, and Cambridge International School is always there to help you out in your studies. So as we are best school, so my students are also best. So we will definitely do best in our studies. And with that hope, I pray COVID-19 pandemic is going to end very soon. So for today, let's start what we're going to do today. So let's start with today's activity in economics. So let's begin. So your chapter number 3, we were doing, the name of the chapter is demand. So we were doing, this is the demand which we are now learning in the real terms. So subject is economics, topic is change in price of complementary goods. We will learn some related topics also to this topic. The left part of your chapter we will finish today. So grade 11. So this is the grade 11 economics which I'm teaching. So my name is Miss Sarita Seni. Let's move now. So topics which we are going to cover today are, number one is change in price of complementary goods, then normal and inferior goods. So we will discuss about this. So in the previous chapter we have discussed, previous lesson we have discussed change in price of substitute goods. So here we are going to discuss only about the change in price of complementary goods. So we will discuss about in detail. So I'll ask you, what are complementary goods? I guess you might be understanding already that one because I've discussed in the last chapter. Now, effect on demand curve with change in income. Yes, change in income. If your income is changing, obviously that will be also having effect on the demand curve. So then is rightward and leftward shift. This we have already discussed in the previous lesson. So we're going to discuss in detail what are the reasons with which rightward shift is created in the demand curve, and then what are the reasons for leftward shift created in the demand curve. So then in the last we will discuss about kinds of demand. So we will discuss about kinds of demand in detail. So that we will discuss with all examples, and in the end, as we do earlier, questions to be done for today. So we will discuss the questions which we are going to cover today in our today's lesson. So before moving towards your chapter, I have to give you one tip for today for your studies part. So that is, yes, whenever you are attempting your economics paper for grade 11, so you have to keep two things in your mind. Whenever you have to draw a schedule for your laws that is given to you, so in that case, what you need to do, you have to draw it with the pen. Fine, you have to draw it with the pen, schedule, that is table. So you have to draw it with the pen, but opposite of that, I can say, if you have to draw any curve or any diagram, any pie chart or any histogram or any polygon or GIF. So if you're drawing all these things, so then you have to always draw it with the pencil. So that is the most important thing, most important tip for today. So that we need to do it. Another tip I will give you tomorrow now. We will continue with this first. So let's begin with today's topic, which we are going to cover today. So the first topic is change in price of complementary goods. So yes, change in price of complementary goods. So complementary goods, I feel you people already know, but still I'm going to repeat it again. Complementary goods are those goods which are demanded together, or we can say which are demanded jointly. So example for this is petrol and car, and diesel and car, we can say bread and butter, we can say tea and sugar. So all these, even ink pen and ink, so all these things are always demanded together. So here we have two types of changes when we talk about the change in price of complementary goods. The first point is increase in the prices of complementary goods, and another is decrease in the prices of complementary goods. So both are affecting it inversely. Fine, for the given commodity. So we will discuss first the part as increase in the price of complementary goods. So let's begin with that. Increase in price of complementary goods. So the first point which we are going to discuss is, you can see we have two commodities here, sugar and tea. So we are not showing the sugar on the graph, so that is only we are showing the price and demand of tea. So what is the reason behind this is like complementary goods. So tea and sugar are both complementary goods. I have already explained to you this. So when price of complementary goods, say sugar, rises, demand for the given commodity, say tea, falls from OQ to OQ1 at its same price of OP. As a result, the demand curve of the given commodity shifts to the left from DD to D1, D1. So what is this telling? At the same price of tea, even if the price of sugar has risen up, so because of that, there is less demand for tea. So demand curve will shift to DD2, D1, D1. So that is the point. So we will have a leftward shift in this. So that is the increase in price of complementary goods. Now opposite of that, we have decrease in price of complementary goods. Now decrease in price of complementary goods. This can be explained now again with the example of tea and sugar. So with decrease in price of complementary goods, sugar, demand for the given commodity, tea, increases from OQ to OQ1 at the same price of OP. As a result, the demand curve of the given commodity shifts to the right from DD to D1, D1. So this is what they are talking about now. This is entirely opposite of your uh, increase in price of complementary goods. So you can see the graph even. So at the same price OP, the now graph has shifted from OQ to OQ1. So now the new demand curve is D1, D1. So that is what happens in the case of change in price of complementary goods in the case of decrease. Fine. So next, let's move on to the next topic, that is normal goods. Now, what are normal goods? This is also a term. Simply what we say normal goods are which we are using normally. No, these are not normal goods in the terms of economics. So normal goods refer to those goods whose demand increases with an increase in income. So if our income is increasing, so we start demanding more of these goods. So for example, we have example of TV. So if the demand for TV increases with rise in income, fine, then TV will be called as normal good. Income effect is positive in case of normal goods. So income effect is always positive in the case of normal goods. So when we are not having much money, when we are not having income more, so in that case what happens? So people will not demand for even normal goods because they have to just think of fulfilling their basic necessities of life. So when you have more income, obviously you will be thinking of your entertainment. So when we are thinking of entertainment, then we are always thinking of buying TV. So when we are thinking of buying TV, then it is we are shifting to the normal goods. So that is what the normal goods is. So when the income is increasing, obviously the demand for normal goods is also increasing. So here we have positive effect of increase in income to the normal goods. Fine. So this is the point. Next is now inferior goods are opposite of your normal goods. Inferior goods refer to those goods whose demand decreases with an increase in income. So some of the goods when we were having less income, some of the goods when we were having less income, obviously we were buying at that time. So when our income is increased, obviously we will shift to the normal goods. So it means there exists an inverse relationship between income and the demand for the inferior goods. So income effect is negative in case of inferior goods. In the case of inferior goods, the income effect is always negative. So for example, if the income of consumer rises and he prefers to replace his black and white TV with a color TV, then demand for black and white TV will fall. In such a case, black and white is an inferior good because it is already obsolete. Obsolete means वो technology already outdated हो चुकी है, ठीक है? So in this case again, the demand curve will be this income is O Y and it has increased to Y1. Now because of change in income, so we will have fall in the price of black and white TV. So what is that? Sorry, demand for black and white TV. So we will have less demand for black and white TV. So in this case, what happens? The demand for inferior goods is now falling. Fine. Next, we have to talk about the effect on demand curve with change in income. So what does it mean? So let's see how income is affecting all these things. So a change in income causes positive changes in demand for normal goods, whereas negative changes occurs in case of inferior goods. We have discussed earlier even. Fine. So the demand curve of a given commodity is affected by a change in income in case of normal goods and inferior goods. So in both the cases that will be affected. In the case of normal goods, they are affecting it positively, but in the case of inferior goods, they are affected negatively. So it must be noted that there is no change in demand for the necessity goods with increase or decrease in income. So basic necessities of life, people are ready to buy in all the time period, whether the price is increased or decreased. So let us discuss the effect on income, effect of income, effect of change in income on the demand curve of the given goods, given commodity, that in case of normal goods and inferior goods. So we will discuss about this now in detail. So the effect in income in normal goods. So we have the first point, that is effect on demand curve of normal good due to increase in income. So when income is increased, obviously the demand for normal goods is also increased. Fine. So when we talk about the demand for normal goods due to decrease in income, obviously people will shift to the inferior goods. So demand curve shifts from right to left now. So decrease in income at the same price of OP. So price is remain same, but there is decrease in income. So this is the point they are talking about. So I hope this is clear to you. Now let's inferior goods, change in inferior goods. So when we talk about the change in inferior goods, we have got increase in income and another is effect on demand curve of inferior good due to decrease in income. So when we are talking about this effect on demand curve of inferior good due to increase in income. So demand curve of inferior good is always shifts to the leftward side due to increase in income at the same price. So when we have increase in income, obviously demand curve will shift to the leftward side. So when we have decrease in income, obviously demand curve will shift to the, in the case of inferior goods, it will shift to the rightward side. So this is what they are explaining. Fine. Next thing, let's move on. So when we talk about the rightward and leftward shift, we have already covered this topic earlier, but here the important thing is the diagram you already know, which we have made earlier, but here we have to discuss about the reasons. So demand curve shifts towards left because of, first is decrease in price of substitute goods, increase in price of complementary goods, decrease in income of normal goods. In case of increase in income of inferior goods, decrease in population, then taste not in favor of commodity, then expectation of future decrease in price. So that will be always, we have to keep it in our mind when we are thinking that there is a leftward shift in the demand curve. Another thing is rightward shift in the demand curve. So there are reasons that is opposite of the leftward shift. Now, increase in price of substitute goods, then is decrease in price of complementary goods, then decrease in income, then then decrease in income, increase in income of normal goods in the case of this, decrease in income in case of inferior goods, then increase in population, then is taste in favor of commodity, then expectation of future increase price. So this is what we are, future increase in price. So this is what they're talking about. Now rightward and leftward shift is indicated again in your chapter, that how all the ceteris paribus reason are creating these shifts. So these are the factors which are always constant in nature. Now let's move to the next thing, that is an important one. Different kinds of demand. The first kind of demand is, that is price demand. So price demand refers to a relationship between price and demand of a commodity, assuming other factors constant. So only when price and demand are related or having a relationship and we feel other factors are constant, in this case we call it as demand, that is price demand. So it can be shown with dx is equal to f functional price of x commodity, then that is the point. We have already discussed about this. Then is income demand. Income demand refers to a relationship between the income of a consumer and the quantity demanded of a commodity, assuming the other factors are constant. So we have now the relationship between income of a consumer and the quantity demanded. So if we feel other factors are constant, then it is income demand. So symbolically it is defined, it is shown as dx is equal to function of y, function of income of a consumer. Next is cross demand. We have discussed earlier even, now let me discuss it in detail with you. So cross demand refers to a relationship between the demand of a given commodity and the prices of related commodities. So when we have relationship between price demand of a given commodity and the prices of related goods, when we assume other factors are constant, then it is your cross demand. Then is joint demand. So when two or more goods are demanded simultaneously to satisfy a particular want, then such a demand is called joint demand. So demand for sugar, milk and tea leaves is a joint demand, as they are demanded together to prepare tea. So this is joint demand. Next is composite demand. Composite demand is when we are putting a commodity into many uses, several uses. So its demand is known as composite demand. For example, is electricity is a composite demand, as it can be used for various purpose, lighting rooms, running the refrigerator, TV, AC, etc. So derived demand. Next is derived demand. Demand for a commodity which depends on demand for other goods is known as derived demand. So for example, this demand for labor producing cloth is derived from, as it depends on the demand for cloth. Yes. So next is direct demand. So when a commodity satisfies the wants directly, its demand is learned as direct demand. So its demand is always learned as direct demand. So when somebody wants to buy a product directly to satisfy himself or herself, so in this case we call it as direct demand. For example, is demand for clothes, books, food, etc. are the direct demand. Next is alternative demand. Demand is known as alternative demand when it can be satisfied by different alternatives. For example, there are options alternatives to satisfy the demand for food, like chapati, rice, salad, fruits, burger, pizza, etc. So when we have so many alternatives available and we can demand anything out of those alternatives, we call it as, that is alternative demand. Next is competitive demand. Competitive demand when two goods are close substitute for each other and increase in demand for one of them will decrease the demand for the other, then the demand for any one of them is known as competitive demand. For example, increase in demand of coffee might reduce the demand for tea. It happens because purchase of more of one commodity, say coffee, leads to lesser requirement for the other commodity. So this is what the competitive demand is. Now let's move to the last part of your chapter, that is the questions which we have to cover today. So the first question is explain change in price of complementary goods. The first which we have discussed. So you have to explain with increase and decrease in price of complementary goods with diagram. So then is define normal goods with diagram. So you will be already knowing this. What are normal goods? Where the income effect is positive. So then is inferior goods. So inferior goods are those goods where the income effect is negative. So we have to explain about this with the diagram. Then is explain effect on demand curve with change in income. So this is also a very interesting topic. When the income of the consumer is increasing or decreasing, you have to explain with this part, this question. Then what are the different kinds of demand? We have to explain it all with examples. So that is all for today. So I hope you're doing well. So and I would say thank you so much. God bless you. Stay happy, healthy, and enjoy learning at home. Happy watching, and I feel you will be learning more and more and take full advantage of all these holidays. Uh, not we cannot say the holidays, but this is the time period when we have to stay at home and even use our healthy routine. So don't forget to learn during this routine. So do exercise also, wash your hands after like frequently, and that is for 20 seconds. So all these things you need to practice during this time period so that we will all survive from coronavirus, and we will have a very good future ahead, and definitely we will meet in the school and then enjoy learning in a more better way. So uh, thank you so much. God bless you. Enjoy learning at home.